What's up, Simonics, and welcome back to a new React quick win. Today I'm going to show you how to use the Ionic Storage package inside your Ionic React application, or actually you could use that package in pretty much every React application out there, because this package is great as it automatically gives you access to the best underlying storage mechanism to write data. So normally you can write to local storage or you can use IndexedDB, but if you want to deploy this application to a device later, build a native mobile application, something like SQLite might actually be better. With Ionic Storage, we can define the order of drivers and let Ionic Storage decide if this specific driver is available, which means on a device, an application can use SQLite. In the browser, it could use IndexedDB, and the rest of the API to get, set, remove, clear data, everything stays completely the same. I'm gonna show you how all of this works with a custom hook in which we can create a connection, update data, write data, delete data, and do everything in combination with a little Ionic list. If you want to check out the source code, link below the member for all Ionic Academy members. And if you're still not a member, go check it out, ionicacademy.com, my place to help you with everything Ionic. But now, let's put the Ionic Storage package into work in our Ionic React application. Alright, so let's get started with a blank new Ionic React application, and we can directly get started by installing the Ionic Storage package. And you can follow up by adding a new folder under source hooks and adding a file. You can do this from the command line or just however the old school way. Well, actually the command line way is kind of the old school way. And what we want to do is we want to use now the Ionic Storage package. So this comes with a lot of information for Ionic Angular, but we can also use it with React Vue or vanilla JavaScript. And we're gonna use that package because under the hood, this package will fall back to the best possible storage engine. So we will later also see how we can define a custom driver order. Where is it? Down here. Which means on a device, this plugin can automatically use the SQLite database instead of IndexedDB or local storage. But usually it will pick IndexedDB first or local storage second if IndexedDB isn't found. Now, let's get started and implement our custom hook. So what we could do as well is we could wrap our app with the context and share everything with a context. That will work as well, but we're gonna use custom hook because that's gonna pretty much work in our case as well. Right now, if you run the application, you can simply run Ionic Serve. So Ionic Serve, there you go. And that should bring up your live reload preview. Where is my preview now? It's gone, there it is. So to fix the issue that we see right now, we first of all need to implement our hook a bit. So let's export a function and we call this use storage. And within we're gonna do a few things. So what we need to do is when we work with Ionic Storage is first of all create the storage connection. So we're gonna do this in use effect. Actually, I got a nice snippet for that. Oh, nice. No idea where this comes from. And the import is wrong, so I pretty much saved no time on this line. Anyway, we're now going to create a function because it's an asynchronous function, and we're going to wrap that in its own function. Async, there we go. And then at the end, we're going to call init storage in our custom hook. Now within init storage, we're going to first create our store by saying new storage. And now we need to be careful because usually when I hit enter, it won't import Ionic Storage. So we really need to make sure that we import storage from Ionic Storage, and then we can use it like this. Additionally, we want to use the storage throughout our application or throughout the hook. So therefore, I'm also going to introduce a state here, so store and set store. I'm going to set this to, well, I don't need to set this to anything in the beginning. So let's keep it like it is. Once we got our new store, we also need to call new store.create. New store create. And this is an asynchronous operation as we see. It returns a promise. So let's await this line. And to keep track of this, I'll now also save it under store. And then I can run set store with our new store variable. Will this work? Argument of type stored is not assignable to parameter of type setAction because we haven't added the right types. So let's change this and say, okay, whatever we've got here will be of the type storage, and then everyone is happy in here. Great. So now at this point, our application should actually work because there's not much going on. What we could do as well is now in here define a custom storage configuration. So you can dive into this and check out the storage configuration. It could look like this: name, version, size, store name, description, driver order, DB key. I'll just give it a different name. So let's call this one Simon's DB. Let's do it in one, Simon's DB. Now at this point, I think I should actually be able to already inspect this. So let's go to application. We see I had my DBs previously. Let's refresh this. Okay, so probably it's not gonna use the name until I actually create some kind of data in the database. That's fair. I wouldn't do it otherwise. Okay, so we're gonna keep it like it is. On top of that, what we want to do as well is we of course want to store some to-dos. So let's first of all set a fixed key, because that's going to make life easier when we access the to-dos. And then we're going to define a little interface because TypeScript is cool. All right. After those lines, we can now call the store. And we're going to say const stored to-dos equal await store.get. So that's the function to get something by a key. And we can now use our to-dos key. So if we would say all the time like my to-dos in here to get something, it's easy to introduce an error because, well, you make a typo, you don't really notice it, and you're gonna debug like 5 hours. Not that this happened to me, but maybe it did happen. So always try and use it like this, where you define the key for your database up there. And then we can call set to-dos if we add a new state. So let's do this, to-dos, set to-dos, and this will be an to-do item array. And in the beginning it will be, an empty array. And then we just need to call set to-dos with the store to-dos, and we have a perfect effect right here in our custom hook that will create the connection to storage, store the variables, we can use it in other functions, and finally also load our to-dos into our hook here into the state variable. Okay, once we got this, we can head over to the home tsx file, because that's actually the place where we want to use our hook. So let's say const to-dos equals use storage, so our custom hook. And on that page, I'm going to remove a few things. So let's call this my to-dos. We definitely need the color primary. I don't want anything of this in here. And instead, I'm going to do an ion list. And then we're going to go over the to-dos, to-dos.map, to-do and key. And for now, I'm just going to return test. So that's fine. I hope at least that's fine. Or are you complaining about this? Property to-dos. To-dos. Okay, our hook is not even exporting the to-dos yet. So let's change this. We're going to add a return to our hooks in which we put the to-dos. And voila, everyone's happy. And actually there is Simon's DB already. Nice. We have no item in here. Can I do this manually? No, actually you can work with IndexedDB if you're using the JavaScript console here, but let's not do this today. Let's save this for another day. Okay, we got the beginning of the hook and we got the beginning of our page. So now we might need more functionality on our page. So let's create this. We probably need a few functions, and we also need an input for a task. So let's add first a task with use state and then 3 different functions, because we want to create to-dos, we want to update the status of a to-do, and eventually delete a to-do. And we're going to connect all of this to our view. So let's make this a bit smaller so you can actually see my view. And we're going to make it like this. So that's the perfect setup we got here. So above our ion list, I'm now going to put in an ion item. And within that item, I'm going to put in an ion input. There we go, placeholder. I'm going to set this to, I don't know, classic is like buy milk, right? Isn't that like the perfect placeholder? There we go. There it is. Also, we might want to have a little button in here. So let's add an ion button. Slot should be at the end of our item. And on click, what we want to do is we want to call our function to create a to-do. So let's assign this create to-do, and then we can just say add. Actually, that looks horrible. Let's say fill clear, because if we do this, it won't add any background. So it looks a bit better. So I can now click add. That's cool. We got the list and we got our input. So I think we're pretty much ready now for the next function. So next one would be to create a to-do in our storage. So let's add a new function, create to-do. And of course, I'm gonna make this a const, create to-do. We only pass in the task at this point. So we're gonna make it async task. There we go. And we're gonna export it as well, just like we did before. So when we create a new to-do, we'll actually do our own to-do because we can then specify all the other things that we need. So for example, what we need is task created status. Let's put this here. Task, of course, comes into the function as an argument. Then we got created. We can just say new date, get time. It should be fine. For the status, we're going to set it to 0 in the beginning. That's like our base state. We could also have an enum, but well, we don't have to. And for the ID, well, we can also just use get time for the ID. You could also use a package to get a unique ID or do whatever kind of crazy things you want. Now, what we want to do with our new to-do is we need to update our to-dos here. And we also need to write them to storage. So let's first update our to-dos, set to-dos, and then we're gonna set it to the value of our current to-dos and the new to-do. So this will get all the items from the to-dos and then add also the new to-do. I actually hope this works. Why are you complaining? Types of property ID are incompatible. Okay, so now you're a string. You're happy? That's how you play with TypeScript. Okay, at this point, we can also let's log this out. Let's log out my to-dos. And then we need to set the key on our storage. So we can use store.set and now also use our to-dos key. We could also make this an exclamation mark here because we're pretty sure at this point store should be defined. If store is not defined or undefined here, that would be kind of strange because we've set it up in our use effect. And we're also gonna pass in the to-dos. All right, let's see if this works. Task, well, we can make this a string. And then, okay, our code compiled, that's good news. Now we just need to call it from here. So let's call from our hook. We first of all import it, create to do. Maybe I should call this add to do, just to make sure we don't run into any troubles here. Let's call this add to do. I feel better about calling it add to do. Okay, and then we can call add to do with our task. We could also await this, doesn't really change anything. And then we set our task back to an empty string. So now let's do this. Let's also open the console so we see what's going on. There we go, test, task. Let's run add. And then we see test, which is great news because that means we have a first item in here. So I could now also add like another, and we would have 2 in here. So now it's complaining about a key. Yes, let's just do this. This is happy as well. Key, we're gonna set this to key, and then I'm gonna actually do to-do dot task, which should hopefully log out our task. Now, what we don't see right now is data. So let's check our application and check my database. And we see there's actually there's data. Why you don't load the data? Please, my friend. To-dos from use storage. So we can easily check this here in the beginning. We got my to-dos. That means we should be able to load them here. Loaded, stored to-dos. Let's put in a look. And then we're gonna see most likely, oh, he's actually loading them. He didn't set the task, which is quite interesting since we called add task with our task. I know. On the Ion input, we actually haven't connected our Ion input to the right function. I love React. So let's say value is task, not task police, and on Ion change, we're gonna call a function. So on Ion change, what we want to do is we can simply do this in one line. We call set task, which will set the value of our state here. And we're gonna set task to e.detail.value. And you're not happy about that string assignable to type set action. Well, what if I put an exclamation mark here? It always fixes the problems. Okay, so let's say this one, and it appears in here. Nice, it works. And also on refresh, I should be able to see my tasks. So not all tasks appear in here. We're gonna have to probably work on that. But for now, we definitely see that, well, I think the add task might not work correctly. So I think the problem is that once we run set to dos and then the last in the line after this we're gonna use it, it's not gonna work like that. So let's make this differently. Const updated to dos, and we're gonna set this to a new array, and then we're gonna use this here and here. That makes sure that we're actually writing really this value to our storage as well. So if we do it, let's probably clear the storage. Sometimes you get issues with the storage because you have wrong elements in there. Simply go to application, pick your DB name under IndexedDB, and then go to delete. And then when you refresh, nothing's there. So let's do it again. EEE, there we go, AAA, it's in there. And after refresh, we still got EEE and AA. So at this point, we can confirm our database works. We can't see it right now because I'm an idiot, but there it is. There are the two tasks with timestamp, ID, status, everything that we need. Okay, cool. That means we're ready for even more action. So what we want to do now is we want to add the right UI and connect it to two more functions. So maybe let's start with the UI, because we want to update and delete a to-do, and we can make this a bit nicer here in our map. So what we're going to do is we're going to use an Ion item sliding. We're going to once again set the key, and an Ion item sliding allows us to easily add buttons or whatever kind of code to the sides. So let's put in an Ion item first of all. This is like the content, the main content. So in here we can just put, like before, to-do dot task, and then we should see we have nice items in here. They have no functionality yet. We could also, is there like a date pipe thingy with React? Like if I put the date in here, or I could actually use I could use new date with to-do dot created. How would that look like? Okay, it won't look like anything because this is gonna break something. The above area objects are not valid as React child. What's wrong with you? Objects are not valid as React childs? Like what's wrong with this? Can I say get date? Would this be better? Actually, that would be better. It just doesn't render anything. Would I have to say something like return? No. Well, I'll leave this to the React experts. Again, I'm still learning React, so probably this is quite easy to print the date. I just don't know it exactly at this point. So let's go back to the Ion item sliding and what we wanted to do initially with it. So for the Ion item sliding, we can now add blocks with Ion item options. So options with an S, and then Ion item option without an S is the actual button inside. So we can say delete, and we want to put this to the side start. So when I save this, I'm now able, I should be able to reveal this delete button right here. I can also give this the color, probably would danger be fitting in that case. And if I do it like this, we got this nice button there. And we can do the same for the other side. But before we do this, let's probably add our functions. So what we want to do on click is we want to call our function. Is there a function? Yes, delete to do. So we're going to call the delete to do function, and we pass in to do.id. It's as easy as that. And now we're going to copy that block, and we're going to simply put it into the side end instead. And what we're going to do is we're going to use here the color. No, let's use the secondary color, and this will update the status of our to-do, and that expects the ID of the to-do and a new status. So I'm going to use for the first one the status 0, and this will mark. Well, we could also use Ion icons here. I will make it easier for you, so we'll do it like this. If a status is put to 1, it is done, and we can set it back to 0 to basically mark it as undone. This will get the color primary. So that's pretty cool. Okay, actually I feel better about using icons. So since they're anyway installed, you can just import them. Go ahead, put it into the right line. I'm going to import the checkmark done outline and the arrow undo outline from Ionicons, and then we can just put them into those according slots here. Ion icon, and I'm going to use icon, and we need to put it like this, but just that I want to use the, what's the other name? Arrow undo outline. Nobody can remember those names. And for the done button, what was it like? Checkmark done outline. Okay. So now we got 2 icons. Actually, why is this so? Oh, it was unbelievable small. That makes sense. Now it's a lot better. Cool, cool. You could also use a trash in the beginning, but that's pretty cool. And we of course got this for all the items in here. All right, that's cool. One thing that you will notice pretty soon is when you click on this, it doesn't close the actual item. Now, I don't know exactly if this is an issue, or a bug, or a feature of Ion List, but you can easily fix this by accessing your Ion List. And we're going to use ref, and we're going to set this to null as any in the beginning because it will prevent some TypeScript errors. And then we scroll down to our actual Ion List and give it the ref, not like this, Ion List. That means we can now access our Ion List here in update status. And what we need to call is current.close sliding items. So you can check out the documentation from Ionic. Let me quickly bring this in to show you what we're doing actually. Ion List, and the Ion List has no, not a property, but a method called close sliding items. Okay, I didn't want to show this whole screen, but anyway, you should have seen that we got a close sliding item in here. And we're of course going to do this in delete to do as well. And once we do this, we're now able to do it like this, and it will easily close our line again. That's a lot better. Now, the last thing we need is actually the functionality from our use storage hook. So we need 2 new functions in here, and I'm gonna just add the first one. So const update to do status equals asynchronous ID string status number. And then we can, actually we can do this. So initially I thought we always load the to-dos from storage, but since we have them locally, we can just change our local to-dos. Wouldn't that be cool? So let's find the right to-do by getting to-dos filter to-do.id equals our ID. So that helps us to filter out the to-do that we want to update. Then we set the to-do status. This returns an array, so we're going to use the first item. You always notice this, like when there's not this coming up, you made a mistake because you should have a to-do item of the interface at that point. TypeScript, always great. Okay, so setting the status to status, and I think we should call set to-dos with, will this update already? This might be enough. Hard to say. I guess it actually might be enough to do it like this. The only thing we still need to do is, of course, store them, because otherwise we wouldn't write the changes to our storage. So let's give this a try. I actually don't know if this is gonna work, but we'll figure this out. So we're now returning it. That means we can import it here. Let's add it here, update to-do status, and then we're gonna use it, simply passing in the ID and status, and we're gonna also await this. So let's see. Because we're not really seeing any status change at this point, let's say we put it in here to-do.status. So then, oh come on, you could have make a line break in here. Let's put this into an ion label, then it's probably happier. Are you happy like this? Somewhat. What if I put it in here? Yes, that's the place I wanted to have it in. All right, let's see. We should be able to set it to the status 1, which is definitely not working. Okay, only after refresh, it has the status 1. So our update function isn't working exactly as expected yet. So let's change this. Let's probably get our to-dos to update equals to-dos. Then we're going to iterate them, update this, and then we're going to call set to-dos with our to update array. And we're going to also write this to our storage. Now if we do it like this, let's see. That's not better. Not really any better. Okay, no problem. Let's put a little lock in here to update, and we're gonna figure this out together. Now, the easy way, of course, would be to just load the data from the system. So once I mark this one, the second one, it has the status 1. So to update definitely works. The only thing that's not working is setting this and getting the actual updates to reflect in our view. Oh, I know. Did we make a mistake here? No, we're actually passing 0 and 1 to update status. I'm sure I've done this wrong before. So it should definitely update the status correctly. It filters them out. It updates the to-do from the to update. Normally it should work. Let me figure this out. All right, we just need to handle the state accordingly. So if we use the spread operator to basically create a new array of the to-dos that we have, then it works perfectly fine. So then we can set it, update it, and write it to our storage, still using the local functionality. Let's check this out. We're gonna set this, goes to 1, this goes back to 0, so perfect functionality. And we can also reflect this in the class actually. So let's do on our item class name equals to-do.status equals when it's 1, we want to add the done class. Otherwise we won't add any class, and then we can simply move into our CSS file, done, and say opacity 0.2 and probably text decoration line through. There we go. That is everything that we wanted. So let's hit this. And I can strike this through, or I can unstrike it, and then it would come back and the sliding list still works. Great. Now there's just one more thing, and that's our delete functionality. So let's add one more function here to our custom hook. We're gonna call this one remove to do. That's actually pretty easy. We just need the ID. So then we can once again create our array copy. We can filter out, and we're just gonna change this. So we will only use the items that are not equal to that ID, and of course not this one. And then we already got our updated, actually we can do it in one line. So we're gonna call this one const to update. Looks strange, but we're just gonna create our own array, which we don't really have to at this point. I think since we're using filter, we're creating a new array anyway. So this one should work pretty well, I think. Let's just edit and see if we can make it work. So we put it in here to our return statement, then we can import it and we can use it in here with the ID. So let's see, I'm actually excited to see if this works. So let's delete. Oh, it works. I love it when this works by milk. I should definitely add something for the enter key hint so it works with enter. But I can mark this, I can go back, and I can also delete it. Nice! This is Ionic Storage in action, and we can just check out all the things that we do by going to our application and refreshing it, and you should be able to see all of your data in here. Now, one more thing. I feel like in every video lately I have this one more thing. What we can do is we can install two more packages, which are the Cordova SQLite storage package and the local forage Cordova SQLite driver package. Now, why can or should we do this? If you develop your application only for the web, for a browser, for a progressive web app here, using IndexedDB is cool, but inside a real mobile application, I speak of a native application that you build with, for example, Capacitor, you actually want to store your data, especially if you want to have it in a persistent and secure way, in a real database, and that is the SQLite database. And we can now tell Ionic Storage to automatically use that. And to do so, we're going to go back to our hook one more time, and we're going to import star as Cordova SQLite driver from the package that we just installed. And we will also import drivers from the Ionic Storage package. And what we're going to do now is we're going to define our custom drivers order here inside new storage. So I'm going to make this a bit bigger so you can actually read this. So where we got name, we now also add the driver order, which means Ionic Storage will try to first of all use the Cordova SQLite driver, then fall back to IndexedDB on the web, and then fall back to local storage. So nothing changes on the web, nothing changes in terms of the API that we're using, only the underlying storage bucket changes when deployed as a real app. And to finally make this work, there's one more line that we need to call before we call create, and that is to define the driver here on our new store. And once you do this, you can build your application for a device. So I could run now Ionic build and Ionic cap add iOS, which would give me the native iOS application. I could deploy it to a simulator or a device. And what I did is SQLite browser. I actually did this before, and I tried to open the file. So I grabbed it, my to-dos, and what I found in that file that I found in the simulator is exactly the data that I had. So my to-dos looking like just like this. Now, this is not perfect SQLite because we're using Ionic Storage, which is a key value storage. So we're just storing something under the key my to-dos, and this is the value. If you want something that's more performant, you would use, of course, SQLite directly. So you could also directly work with SQLite. But if you're using Ionic Storage, I just want to show you that with our custom driver order, we're still able to use SQLite, and we haven't changed anything besides those few lines here in our initial code. So everything else completely stays the same in our example, and we got a more secure and stable Ionic React application with Ionic Storage in web, PWA, and of course desktop if you want as well, and mobile web native. Alright, and that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this quick win. Actually, it was longer than expected because we went a bit back and forth between the different files, but I really wanted to show you how you can implement this, what you need to watch out for, and also encountered a few problems like things not updating along the way. But in the end, we could make everything work with Ionic Storage, and as you've seen on a device, SQLite now, on the web, IndexedDB, and this is a pretty great and cool storage mechanism for a key value storage. Now, of course, if you want more SQL power, you could use an SQLite package, which works on a device. If you want a bit less power, you could use capacitor storage, which is pretty much just for a few settings. But overall, Ionic Storage is in the middle ground and a good example for a great storage mechanism. If you got any questions about this, please let me know in the comments. And of course, if you get any other problems with Ionic, React, or anything related to building your apps, just let me know. As always, I've been Simon. I'm gonna help you build great mobile applications based on your web development skills, and I'm gonna hopefully catch you inside the next video. So until then, happy coding, Simon.